You're listening to the Smart Nonprofit Masterclass. I'm Jose Gomez, founder and CEO of nonprofitwebsites.com and Net Ministry. If you're a leader or founder of a nonprofit who wants to reach more donors, volunteers, members, supporters, and the community that you're serving using the power of the internet, then I'm waiting for you in today's episode. So let's get growing. Hello, nonprofit leaders. It's time to talk about a very important topic, one that's been very near and dear to my heart for many, many, many years that we've been doing this. And it deals with volunteers building your nonprofit website. Now, before I get started, I just want to say, listen, we all love, honor, and respect our volunteers. We love that they provide their gifts, their talents, their resources to help our nonprofits grow. And without volunteers, most nonprofits would be dead in the water. We wouldn't be able to do the things that we do nearly as efficiently and nearly as grand as what we normally do. However, there are limitations as to what a volunteer is helpful in. And when we talk about this topic, we're talking about something that's very critical to an organization. So we're not talking about something like handing out flyers. We're not talking about setting up a dining room. We're talking about something that is very critical to the operation of a nonprofit, and that deals with things like marketing and accounting, administration, things that are very important to the ongoing operations and the growth of your nonprofit organization. And for those things, it's very hard to justify the use of a volunteer who may or may not be here in a few months to do those tasks, or rather to create policy, create ongoing items within your organization that others will have to rely on even after they're gone. So today we're going to talk about that in the context of building your nonprofit's web presence. And we're going to talk about why it's not a good idea for volunteer staff and sometimes even staff that you hire to build and create something like your nonprofit's website without the right tools, without the right training, without the right guidance in that process from folks that'll be here and be around even after they leave. Now, we hear all the time because the resources are low and because nonprofits don't quite understand what a website can do for them, we see leaders using volunteer staff or teenagers in high school or some donors' resources to help them establish their web presence. And it sounds like a good idea. It's on the surface, the volunteer meets the needs of the organization and the nonprofit avoids investing a bunch of money and time into the website. But when we start to explore the problems that are associated with doing this, we start to uncover the true cost of using volunteers to create your worldwide presence. Remember, your website, your presence, your social media, all of these things are your worldwide representation, are the worldwide representation of who you are as a nonprofit and who you are as a leader too. So we have to remember that. Putting that in the hands of a volunteer certainly has its costs. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. The first thing I want to talk about is that volunteers usually are inexperienced at building a web presence. What we see for the most part is that nonprofits they've never developed their web presence. They're trying to get one going, or they're trying to redo one maybe previously that has failed or has kind of gone out of style. And what they'll do is they'll pull together volunteer staff and say, "You guys are in charge of redesigning the website." And maybe you have a little bit of experience in design, or maybe you have a volunteer who knows how to use a certain platform or software, and so you give them charge of redesigning and rebuilding your web presence. Because for many organizations and for many leaders, they don't understand that it's much more than just an online business card. At least it should be. A website can create opportunities for you. It can create and draw the image of who you are, but even more so, it can help to conduct transactions, not just financial ones, but volunteer transactions, relationships. It can help to illustrate and tell your story, but it can also help to facilitate interaction with your organization. And so what leaders will do is they'll charge, their volunteer staff with learning some software to build the website. Even if the volunteer finds something easy to work with, they lack the forethought, the planning, the execution of a seasoned professional. They don't do this for a living. They are usually just given this task to try to figure out. And there's so much wrong with that process. The sites that they usually create they're trying to copy from someone else. They're trying to follow some trend that's supposed to be followed, that maybe another organization is following. There's so much wrong with the process because they don't know what to do. Even when you have a volunteer who claims to know what to do, they've supposedly built many websites, or they're an expert at a particular platform. What we find most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, is that their claims or their experience falls a little bit short. The real value of using an outside vendor to help you establish your web presence, it's being able to leverage their expertise and experience. You want to find a vendor who's done this for a while, that's done this specifically in your space, in the nonprofit space. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to give something to this volunteer to figure out from scratch. There are people, for example, like us, who've done this for a while. You can't simply copy and paste somebody else's nonprofit website and expect to succeed. In fact, most nonprofits are failing to leverage the internet to increase their supporter base and engagement. So using a vendor who knows what's working and what's not working is really key to success. And remember that statement, most nonprofit websites are based on some other nonprofit's website because they had a volunteer do theirs too, or they're following some sort of a template that they get on some platform, and so everybody's using the same template. What you want to do is have a vendor who can look at your organization uniquely and determine what needs to be applied, what pieces of technology needs to be applied, and knows how to do that. The next point I want to discuss is how volunteers disappear at some point. They make you start over every time they leave. Have you ever had a volunteer start a project and then leave without completing it? Many nonprofits come to us with that same exact story. A volunteer created a website or a social media account, but never finished. Most of the time, their web presence, a hodgepodge of whatever technologies the volunteer knows about, and without any regard with what the measurable results are. They usually come in, they create based on what they know, and then when they leave, no one knows what they know. And when the volunteer leaves, the knowledge of whatever they're working on goes away. Proficiency in the software vanishes, and no one wants to manage the site. Nobody wants to learn how. The website sits there until the next volunteer tries to take the reins, and inevitably the process starts all over again. They got to just do everything all over again. They have to create the accounts over again, or they have to completely revamp what the previous volunteer does. Because everybody knows that when they take something over, the first thing they do is to evaluate what the previous person did, and figure out what they can do better or what needs to change about it. And regardless of how many times it happens, every new person has that experience. We've heard so many times how volunteers will come in and they'll look and they'll say, well, I don't know why this person was doing it this way. Let's do this differently. And even if the previous way was better, they're going to change it up and they're going to make you start over in the process. And this is just the natural cycle of people leaving. Volunteers come and go. So having a vendor or a third party that can be there in the middle as your staff comes and goes, as your volunteers come and go, to help to train them, bring them up to speed so you can continue your momentum. The more you have that in place, the better. Let's talk about volunteers not quite usually understanding how to accomplish your goals. Creating an effective web presence, it takes more than just picking a website design template. It takes careful planning as to how your organization's goals will be accomplished through it. So goals are caught by systems and technologies that must be installed into the website. Those systems are triggered by valuable content, and website visitors can take your website visitors can take action on. The site has to be organized in a way that makes sense to them and leads them to meaningful interactions. A lay volunteer doesn't usually know how to translate those things properly, and most of the time they don't even know what's available to them. many times they don't even truly clearly understand what you're trying to accomplish, because again, you're trying to translate it from a high level directive, from a high level understanding of what your organization is trying to do, and you're expecting them to know how to intuitively translate that into technology, into marketing, into design, and into options that make sense to help you accomplish those things. These aren't simple things. There's entire sciences devoted to how people interact and how to make them do the things that you need them to do. So giving that to a volunteer is usually a bit short-sighted. They don't really know how to do that. They don't hardly understand your goals, but they don't know certainly how to accomplish the goals once they do. Now, professionals who do understand that can take you through the process of properly constructing your entire web presence, from your website to your social media accounts. They understand how to prepare your content and optimize it for the search engines. They know how to leverage social media and paid advertising and email marketing to boost your website's traffic. They know the secrets to increasing donations through your website. And these are skills that take years to perfect, and technologies are constantly shifting, and they're the ones with their fingers on the pulse. Does that even sound like a job for a volunteer? Does that sound like someone just coming right off the street knows how to do? And certainly, these days, what a lot of folks do, and even in our industry, folks will buy a few books and start a business. They'll read a few books and say, oh, this is easy. And they get into business. And what they'll do is fail for the first 10 to 15 years, or fail for the first 5 years. And until they actually get that wind under them, until they've got the experience and they've made enough mistakes, you're the guinea pig. You're the test monkey. You're the organization that they learn on. Do you want that to be you? Do you want to be the learning experience, or do you want to take the knowledge and experience that somebody has applied to you and be the reapers of the benefits of those things? Now, the next thing to talk about is the volunteers don't usually have the resources to make your website what it can be. Once a website's completed, there's a lot to do. In fact, developing and designing your website is only the foundation of your effective web presence. From there, content has to be updated. It has to be updated constantly. It has to be moved forward. Blogs have to be written and published. Rank reports and traffic logs have to be analyzed for opportunities. There has to be a constant outreach for your supporters to maintain that relationship, and calls to action for them to do something with. Most volunteers don't even know where to start with all this, but seasoned professionals have a repertoire of strategies and tactics designed to help you grow your worldwide presence. They can implement their own technologies as well as third-party tools that produce measurable, sustainable results in an ethical way. And it's just so important today that we do address some of these issues. It's not just about implementing things and installing things and jumping on the latest app. It's about knowing how to use that to engage your donors, your volunteers, your supporters, your community in being involved with you in a way that's meaningful and that's ethical and legal. There are a lot of legalities around outreach, especially when we get into the realm of auto calls or automated text messaging and even email. You need to be aware of the nuances of those things so that you can implement the right strategies to execute and to accomplish the things that you're trying to accomplish. Now, it might sound tempting to save money by having a volunteer or donor build your nonprofit website, but make no mistake, doing so can cost your organization millions in lost opportunity, donations, and relationships. And this is why we're in business, to help nonprofits grow using the experience of working with tens of thousands of nonprofits around the world. Now, what I want you to do right now is I want you to just kind of stop for a moment, write down your nonprofit's online goals. Now, the online goals, what I mean by that is write down what it is that you want your website to produce for you. What do you think it should produce for you? What are the tangible results that you want to see? Think about the type of growth that you're looking for as an organization and tie that together. Think about the impact that you could have on your community and the world. Think about how much money you need and how important that impact is. Now, picture making a high school student the one in charge of communicating that to the entire world. Picture a volunteer coming off the street who just raises their hand, and you just point at them and say, you're now in charge of all of those important things. And think about whether that makes sense for you. Does that make sense for your nonprofit? Does it sound like you're saving anything, saving money, saving resources, or does it sound like you're wasting time? I want you to really think about that today, and think about not just how volunteers are of value to you, but where volunteers are giving them something that important could be a detriment to your organization. This doesn't take away from the value of the volunteer. This doesn't take away from the volunteer roles that you can define that'll help your organization move forward. What it does is it helps you to understand that volunteers and even sometimes hired staff should probably not be in charge of everything within your organization. You've got to have some sort of stability in order to see growth. And if you do hire to bring somebody on board to manage your web presence or manage your finances or manage your policy or manage your volunteers, those should be people who are experienced, knowledgeable, and have some sort of a track record that you can rely on. Don't just give it blindly. And this includes your entire worldwide web presence. I hope that today's episode's been useful to you. I want to also encourage you to take a look over at nonprofitwebsites.com, where we offer a number of different services that can help to avoid this type of an issue. We've got services and packages for nonprofits of all sizes, of all phases, whether you're a startup or whether you're you're a large, experienced, and growing nonprofit. We have a brand new program called Grow, which takes all the services that we offer, from website building and management all the way to social media management, Facebook ads, Google pay-per-click will help you get the Google ad grant for your organization. Basically, it's the everything. We throw everything into the pot to help you to continue to grow and to foster your relationships out in your community. Grow is phenomenal if you are a larger nonprofit and you've got a budget and you want to really put this thing on overdrive. But we've also got wonderful programs for organizations that are smaller as well. So take a look over at nonprofitwebsites.com. I'm not going to make this a huge pitch. You don't need another one of those. But today, really give this some thought. If you are using volunteer staff for your critical nonprofit infrastructure, I want you to give that some thought. There is a split here as to what you can give a volunteer and what you really need to make sure is in the hands of someone who's experienced, knowledgeable, that you have validated, has some sort of a track record that you can rely on. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Smart Nonprofit Masterclass. I hope that it challenged you in some way and provided you with the tools to effectively communicate your nonprofit's initiatives to the communities you serve. Now, I'd love to get more involved with your nonprofit and help you to increase donors, supporters, and community presence. My team's been doing it for over 2 decades. In fact, we're usually the team nonprofits call on when all the other agencies, service providers, and volunteers fail to provide the results that they're looking for. Sadly, it's usually after they spend way too much money figuring that out. Don't wait that long. We're looking for more nonprofits just like yours to serve and help grow. But we'll never have the chance to do that unless you reach out. So I'd like to point you to a free webinar that doesn't require any sort of email sign up. If you feel that we can help you after watching it, then book a call with me directly and we'll go over the ways we can best help you. Go now to nonprofitwebsites.com/apply. And I'll see you on the other side. Have a great day.